Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of Ek Mulakat Vishesh, an initiative by Prabha Khaitan Foundation, presented by Shri Cement Limited. Prabha Khaitan Foundation is an organization based in Kolkata, founded by late Dr. Prabha Khaitan. The foundation is dedicated to promote performing arts, culture, education, literature, gender equality, and women's empowerment. It collaborates with caregivers, committed individuals, and like minded institutions to implement cultural, educational, literary, and social welfare projects in India. The guest for today's session is Dr. Samin Sharma. Dr. Samin Sharma is the Senior Vice President, Operations and Quality at the Mount Sinai Hospital. He is the Director of Interventional Cardiology there. He also chairs the prestigious position as the President at the Mount Sinai Heart Network. He is a renowned interventional cardiologist, well known for performing high risk, complex coronary interventions. Dr. Sharma also specializes in TAVR and MitraClip procedures. He has been the master of rotoblast. He is also a philanthropist, and Mount Sinai Cath Lab is now renamed as Dr. Samin K. Sharma Family Foundation Cardiac Catheterization Laboratory. Dr. Sharma has built a 250-bedded hospital in his native place in Jaipur to provide the best affordable care to all patients, irrespective of their financial and social status. In a conversation with him today is Karishma Mehta, a lawyer, a banker, and an SAS woman of Mumbai. Now, I would request the audience to sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. Over to you, Karishma.
Thank you so much, Shubh. Dr. Sharma, it's an absolute honor to have you amongst us here today. Dr. Sharma, if you don't mind, we would like to know something about your journey. You're born in Alwar in Rajasthan. You received your medical degree from SMS College in Jaipur in 1978. After which, in 1983, you moved to New York. And you've been there ever since. You're an award-winning interventional cardiologist where you do high-risk complex coronary interventions with an extremely high success rate while achieving an extremely low complication rate. You've received prestigious 2-star designations numerous times from the New York State Department of Health, because of which. If you would just let us know something about your journey so far from Jaipur to New York to where you are today.
All right, so good Wednesday, knowing that somewhere morning, somewhere evening, the Karishma, Shubh, and of course, all the organizations of Prabha Khaitan Foundation giving this opportunity. And I think this all started by Sandeep Bhutoria, my friend. He said, we need to hear a little more about in this day and age, the KF Foundation brings some guests periodically, and I happen to be today, and I really thank. The journey was very simple. When I growing up, my goal was to go to America. They didn't have anybody, no relatives, nothing but just go to America. So that was the basically, and that is what I tell all the young people, that you need to determine and then work for it. Not that you have thought about it. Thinking doesn't take you anywhere. It is thought, then you have to implement, work for that thought process. And that is the key. So always wanted, and towards that work hard to come to America, not having anybody here, work as a delivery boy in the beginning, but then made to with one of the prestigious hospital, Mount Sinai, brought Mount Sinai to #1 in terms of interventional cardiology. What mentioned earlier by Shubh, the rotablation is the device, when you have blockage, usually it's a fat. But sometimes, or actually many times, it's a fat and a lot of calcium, which is a tough blockage. So in order to clean that blockage, alone balloon and stents don't work. You have to clean it, kind of grind it, and then basically that's the rotablation. So it's like a drill going through that minute arteries and create a minute particle. And that actually has been one of the biggest part of my success, that I really mastered this procedure to open the blockage, particularly tough blockages, complex blockages, which are calcified, and brought Mount Sinai to #1. In 2005, we became, in terms of safety, means what are the complications of angioplasty or stenting, we were very low since 1995. But then volume, it has to be both safety and the volume. So volume, we became 2005. So at present, Mount Sinai is number one in this procedure called cardiac cath lab volume of interventions in United States for last 15 plus years. And at the same time, is one of the safest place to get these procedures done. So that is the best combination. Now, many times it happens when you become too busy, volume goes up, quality goes down, but did not happen. And I teach everyone, I say, why did not happen? It's basically that you need to ask for appropriate support by the institution, infrastructure support in terms of manpower, the place, and of course, whether it's the nurses, the physicians, and so, and the proper setup, create a protocol. So everything has to be done by the protocol that lead to success, because everybody does the angioplasty. In America, there are total 6,400 cath labs in America which do procedures, but in that to rise among that in terms of safety and then of course the volume, it requires very dedication, extra effort. It's not only at my level, but at the institutional level that I remain with Sinai. I came as a fellow, became 88 to 90 and became attending. Now 33 plus years, all have been at Mount Sinai. The one place, continue to make it excellent in terms of invasive procedures when anybody needs it. And that is where the Mount Sinai name was. So coming back to the journey, so once we had done Mount Sinai, ये कहते हैं ना कि भाई आपने विदेशों की सेवा कर दी, अंग्रेजों की सेवा कर दी, अब क्या करना है? भाई करना सिंपल है, अपने इंडिया का करना है. अपना इंडिया से जयपुर से आए. I was topper when came in MBBS. I topped not only Jaipur, entire Rajasthan University. And if you go to SMS in the porch, when people, when any person who tops SMS, the name is written in white letters. But if the SMS person also topped the entire Rajasthan, the name is in golden letters. So I 1978 in the porch of SMS, my name is there. But clearly wanted to come to America, made Mount Sinai one. But it's, you know, you always miss something, miss your India. What can you do? You have done good here, but you need to do equally good back there. So that was the foundation of a hospital made Eternal Heart Care Center. Vasundhara Raje, our chief minister, gave us the land. We built it. My wife, Manju, who is US citizen, she decided that she'll build it. You need somebody dedicated. And she was there since 2009. Took 5 years to build, 2014, 15, and now 6 years running, which has really become a marked key hospital for advanced, not only cardiology, but many other specialties. But I'm so happy to share with everyone is that this is the hospital, just like in the main country, Vedanta and other people look for, the HCC is the hospital where people look to come. And because things will be done correctly and basically in a very transparent fashion and to the affordable price. So it's not that prices, of course, people charge, but prices for the procedure need to be done. But at the same time, if somebody cannot afford, I have the Eternal Foundation where that can support anybody who enters. The treatment is done and we do many other activities. But key is the wanted to make replica of Mount Sinai in Jaipur. I say, why Jaipur? Because I came from Jaipur. This is the payback. Why? Because to Jaipur, my SMS Medical College, my teachers who made me to this level, I got to. So it was kind of payback to the home city, homeland, home country, making the mini replica of Mount Sinai, which is the Eternal Heart Care Center. Now it's called Eternal Hospital because not only heart, others, and full affiliation with Mount Sinai for various exchange of research, exchange of brain training, and so anything which comes in America, we are ready to bring it to Jaipur to our people right there. So I'm very satisfied on both front, the American front and the India front.
Wow. So Dr. Sharma, other than running two hospitals in 2 different continents, you also love teaching other cardiologists through your annual live symposiums called Complex Coronary Cases. And your monthly, this happens, I think, once a year. And then you also have your monthly webcasts, which broadcast live procedures to 138 countries. So I mean, it's amazing. How do you manage all this? So what does a typical day in your life, your work day in your life look like?
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. Right now, Zoom has made life so simple, right? Anybody can give lecture anywhere. I'm talking about back in 2005-7 when we started, top and of course annual teaching. Once a year you do the symposium, and so. But Keys, you need teaching more. I thought back in 2007, it took me 2 years that how by sitting in Mount Sinai, I can do the global teaching. So I have received numerous best teacher awards in Mount Sinai, and so much so even back in my medical college or residency when we did my fellowship and residency in our batch, the percent marks and percent people passed are tremendous. Like never in the history, whether it's SMS Medical College or here. So 15 people will take the exam and 14 will pass during our residency. When I was teaching during my training, I'm teaching my other residents. So goal was that how can I teach this my art. Remember अपने क्या कहते हैं कि अपने आयुर्वेदी में कितने ऋषि मुनि थे, उनके पास कैसी कैसी पावरें थी, कैसी जड़ी बूटियां जिसको कि संजीवनी मान लो, आपको सही है गलत है जो अलग बात है, बट ऐसी कितनी पावरें थी कि वो अपने साथ चली गई, उन्होंने किसी को सिखाई नहीं. So I always have that, not a competition. We want somebody, another interventionist जो मेरे फील्ड में है, वो जापान में बैठा है, इंडिया में बैठा है, पाकिस्तान में है, कहीं भी है. यदि वो ट्रेनिंग understand exactly what I'm doing and he or she can benefit more people, there's nothing like that. So then I had an idea. So we start called CCC Live Cases, www.ccclivecases.org. So purpose there is, so now the third Tuesday from 8 to 9, we announce the case by the e-blast beforehand. And this started July 2009. We tell our audience and they can log in. At that time, the case is done live. It's not recorded. Anybody sitting anywhere, right now it goes to 179 countries. And we have about 30 to 32,000 hits per episode. About 17,000 through YouTube channel and 14,000 through our CCC Live. So person while doing a procedure, somebody does not object or wants to say that why are you doing this versus what, can ask the question because there is a moderator. So this is the thought back in 2009, and now it's a 12 plus years has been a constant teaching. So that is part. Of course, once you have such a high volume, the volume wise, I do the highest number, about 1,800 cases per year. Intervention. Total procedures, I do about 4,000 per year for many years, but 1,800 interventions per year. And it takes a lot of long time, long day, busy day, but that's okay. You say that, remember, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. That's it. Though you never get tired. But I also say people, like some people working all 7 days, 24/7. No. Take one day off. Just to say, my wife Manju now, who is running this ESCC, because of so much involved, she's all 7 days. I have been telling her, take one day off. Even machine needs a rest. So I call it a battery charging day. You need to charge your own battery. So Saturday is my off day. So Saturday is the only time I'm not in the hospital. Sunday I'm in the hospital every time when I'm here. And of course, once a month I go to Jaipur. But Sunday is a working day. Others 5 days working. Many times it past midnight, particularly Tuesday. Tuesdays I fast. And that is the Sharma's fasting day, has been written both Forbes magazine. I have given into our American media that there is something more than what you do. The outcome is not that is predictable, but most of the time it is some other supernatural power, I believe, which takes you to the best outcome. And that's a Tuesday, and Tuesday is the one which is I do the maximum number of cases, the toughest cases, and usually go till midnight. But that's okay because I'm not eating 24 hours till 12 midnights anyway. So it works hand to hand, and it's become totally ingrained in the system that without eating, doing 30, 40 cases on that day with a great, great success.
That's absolutely, again, commendable. So I mean, given that today's situation that we are in, this ongoing pandemic, the new normal, whatever that, so many terms for today in the times that we are living in today. So cardiac diseases have been very well documented in COVID-19 infections. There supposedly are cases with long-range cardiac symptoms which emerge in patients with or without pre-existing, CV diseases, even after COVID recovery. So I thought if it's possible, if you could talk to us about what are the special precautions one can take, post even people with heart diseases. And now, as I said, even the ones who have not had any, history, but today have had some severe cardiac complications after recovery. So do they need to monitor their cardiac biomarkers like D-dimers? What do they do? So, sir, if you could just, elaborate on that.
Yeah, Karishma, very important point and very good, valid point. One of the problem is that with the COVID, there's nothing written in the books. There's nothing in the textbook. We are learning as we are going. So one thing there are two things happen. One, effect of the COVID, and secondly, what happened to the rest of the system during COVID, not because of COVID. So key is and I'll show you some slide. I've been on a lot of media. I was the first one to document, I have the New York Times article back in April last year, that what happened is during COVID time, your typical heart attack disappeared.
Reduced, yes.
Reduced globally. And there are
Yes.
reasons for it, because we are having good food, no pollution, doing more exercise. And so those heart attacks, the typical problems are gone, typical heart attack. But the COVID then came in, and COVID creates a lot of trouble. COVID caused the pulse rate to go up. And of course, besides affecting the lungs, where there is a difficulty in breathing, the D-dimers, inflammation, all those things happen. But more importantly, from the specific heart point of view, it has shown to cause some clotting, then irregular heartbeat, sometimes fast heartbeat. And what has been shown now is very important. That is that even after COVID is done, there is a condition called cardiomyopathy, COVID cardiomyopathy, that people 2-3 months later come back with a weak heart. Now question is why that happened. So far, we do not know. We don't know because we are treating the COVID at time zero. But what is going to happen 2 to 3 months later? Nobody knows. So, but yeah, key is coming back to the point that even if you recover from the COVID, what you should do, I say simple thing, but somebody has to do from the COVID, because we know that COVID will affect two important things. One is the lungs, and second is the heart. So everyone after recovery from the COVID, because during COVID time, everybody is concerned to go to the center, to the hospital, and maybe other hospital don't want to take you. It's the both things. So key is once you recover, just do an electrocardiogram, which is called ECG, and second is the echocardiogram. That is the sound wave function of the heart. That is the test of the heart to see that heart is working good. Once you have passed that, then there's nothing to be concerned, the long-term effect of COVID. But what will be coming in the future, I cannot predict. But yes, so far, I say to everyone, when you recover from COVID, you're feeling good, all looking good, just get in 1 to 3 months after your recovery from COVID, electrocardiogram and echocardiogram, to just see that there has been no telltale sign of COVID in your body, and more so in the heart.
Great. So, sir, regardless of the person's age, this is something they should just do to, as a precaution.
Actually, young people are getting it even.
Yes, they are.
A lot of people, I know personally here as well in India, about 6 people who died because they wanted to go back to exercise soon, and they did not do any further testings. And so I know many were hospitalized 2 months after their COVID because heart became weak, and they kept on thinking it's a little COVID shortness of breath, and so it turns out to be COVID was affecting their heart muscle, which supposed to be normal at one point, ejection fraction 60%, became 10 or 20%. So key is that we learning, not everybody has to get MRI, which is the good, very specific. But if you find something in the echo, then you go to the next level. Then you have to get to cardiologist, then they will get MRI to see how bad the heart is affected. But routine, everyone's my advice, do an electrocardiogram, do an echocardiogram few months after your COVID recovery. That will reassure you that your heart has not been long-term affected by COVID.
And so whose heart is affected? There are people who know. Is this a permanent damage, or is it something that can be reversible with, with care and medication and, proper monitoring?
Yeah. So as far as the personal experience, there's not much has been written about it, but yes, by and large, it is reversible. So there are medications which are given. So it's not a permanent, and I haven't had any patient who had a heart transplant from the COVID. That it's not a permanent effect. People have a lung transplant from COVID, but not the heart transplant from COVID. So it is I would say reversible, but has to be detected in time. So I'm sure some of people may have not got to the heart transplant. They died before it. Your heart became too weak. But as far as personally, I know, and I know quite a bit because I have one of my friends who was sick last year. We got him lung transplant in America at Cleveland Clinic from Sinai. We transferred him. He was the second lung transplant recipient, COVID patient in America. But there are some transplant being done in India also. But heart transplant as such, I'm not aware. I'm sure maybe people might have done it. But for COVID patients, there has been no heart transplant. So coming back to the point, Karishma, that yes, this disease just need to be detected and treated properly, And I would say that one of the reasons is also that COVID is at a high alert. People are not neglecting, at least once it comes down to their care, or people more and more looking for medical care, and we are detecting this at early stage.
Yes, because there was a slight, there was a sudden uptick in heart attacks, strokes. I think it was also a combination of factors that people were worried when, even though it was non-COVID related symptoms, they didn't want to go to the hospital. They were concerns whether, there would be infection there. And in places like, in India, there was a time when it was very difficult to even get a doctor on your call. So I guess it was multiple factors, which saw the uptick. But having said that, sir, this is great information to know that we should make sure that people take a ECG and echocardiogram at least 2 to 3 months from their recovery. So other thing is, there has been a lot of noise about the safety of vaccines for people with heart and circulatory conditions. So what is your take on that?
Yeah. So very simple. I would say that America has won the COVID war. As you know, now we have 5,000 patients of the COVID patients compared to whatever 200,000 used to be, only 4,000 or 5,000. Is all because of vaccine. Because they say the threshold is once you get to 62% of your population vaccinated. So that's kind of herd immunity. And America right now with the 2 shots at 69%, 1 shot is 92%. By end of this month, everybody who need to be vaccinated will be vaccinated by July 31st. That has been a government motto. And the key is the vaccine. I know a lot of people are concerned. Some people say the one person who did not got COVID, 100%, whether it's a young or old, should get COVID vaccine. No question of that. Those who got COVID is a little issue. Maybe you wait 3 months, 4 months, that's a written 90 days, but I have seen patients even after 90 days, they get COVID, they get very sick and so. But otherwise, it's a milder symptoms. Everybody get a little sick because what is a vaccine? Just think about it. The vaccine is the mini COVID created in your body.
Yeah.
So we are like a well-controlled mini COVID because so then you can make your antibodies. So you can protect it, and antibodies last for 1 year. People keep asking 1 month, 2 months. No, 1 year. But 1 year, yeah. Because they tested this vaccine last June, July only. So they expect 1 year. Now, is it going to last 1 year? We don't know, because they've been tested only for last 10, 12 months. So it could be longer, but 1 year for sure. But everybody should get the vaccine. Those who have COVID should delay it for 4 or 5 months, in my opinion. And yes, there may be some side effects of the COVID vaccine that will happen, but that's expected. A little more with the second shot than the first shot. But all these reactions which happen are extremely, extremely mild. But more importantly, the benefit outweighs. So just to see, you take the people from the COVID dying, if you get a COVID virus itself, the chance of dying is 12% or 15%. If you have COVID vaccine, chance of dying is 0.001%, no matter what type of vaccine you give. Now there are some vaccine efficacy. Pfizer, Moderna is on the top, followed by Covishield and Johnson Johnson. So those are the different stories. But key is that vaccines are very effective. Everybody should get it. It should be the national. At present, in entire America, vaccine is given, COVID vaccine is given free. And your choice, you can get Johnson Johnson 1 shot, or you get classical Pfizer 4 weeks and Moderna 5 weeks shot. So that's all available. But vaccine, in my opinion, and I think a part of the reason in India it's going down now is not only we got a lot of people got infected with this Delta virus and so or variant, but key is the vaccine. So population getting vaccinated, the COVID may get sick, but they will not be sicker to requiring hospitalization, maybe mild symptoms, and therefore everyone should get COVID vaccine. I know there is a lot of concern, a lot of people. I know, so fanatic. They're saying, well, we may die from COVID, okay, but we are not going to take vaccine. But that's, some percentage, even in America. America is expected. There was an article about 3 months ago that about between 4 and 5% of the American population will refuse COVID. They are giving incentive to the college students. They will put a lottery. You'll get a free tuition, and you name it. So many. Until the institution like hospitals right now, it's not mandatory. But once the data come, I would say that it will become mandatory, just like flu vaccine. In America, if you're working, you're a healthcare worker, you're exposed to the patient, you have to have a flu vaccine every year. It's mandatory. Otherwise, you cannot come in contact with the patient. So therefore, same thing may happen. Right now, it's not a law yet, but need to be seen. But just to simple word that everyone should get the COVID vaccine. I got the first one when it's available here at Mount Sinai on December 18th. Then I got second shot on after I came back. After the first shot, I went to India. I didn't go from April to December, but then I went end of December after the first shot, and then I took the second shot on January 22nd. And then if somebody wants to see whether your vaccine is working or not, so there is a special antibody, spike antibody test. I would say that test it, no wrong problem, because soon you'll have a choice of the type of vaccine. If you didn't develop antibody, spike protein is a special antibody, and if you did not, vaccine didn't work in you, you're fully, I recommend that they should get a second or different vaccine. So because not everybody with a COVID vaccine is immune for the COVID infection. So if you have a chance and you have a choice of another vaccine, you definitely check your COVID vaccine antibody. And if it is negative,
Sorry, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
No, if it is negative, then you can get a different type of vaccine. Covaxin was healed, and same thing. I have actually here. I have we have in our cath lab, the cardiology area, 500 people. They have of them about like 250 have tested their antibodies, and only 2 people who did not have, one with the Moderna, one with the Pfizer, did not make their antibodies. They got other one, and then they made the antibodies after. So it is a very 98-99% effective, both of them, but there still will be a small percentage. Then you can get the second vaccine, so you are fully protected.
So it's safe. It's safe for you to go ahead after you've taken your 2 Covishields or something, if it doesn't work for somebody. Because I do know of people who have had their vaccines and they've taken the spike protein test, and they've not made enough antibodies for it to be able to combat the disease. So that's something. It's also something which is very good to know, sir. So, sir, so basically, is there a protocol for heart patients who are on blood thinners or something when it comes to their vaccines?
Yeah. So question comes is that if you are on blood thinner, because the injection will be given, so it may cause hematoma, the bleeding underneath the skin. Somebody who is taking blood thinner, and we are not talking about the regular blood thinner like aspirin, Plavix, or Brilinta. We are talking about the warfarin, the for the valve, or heparin. Those may cause more bleeding, but otherwise, those who are taking simple clopidogrel, clopidogrel, aspirin, there's no need to stop. But those who are taking stronger blood thinner for the valve, and so there we say that you should stop that for 2 days before taking the shot, because otherwise it can cause more local site bleeding or hematoma, but rare cases. But so a lot of people have asked even here and there. I tell them to wait 2 days and take the vaccine. But take the vaccine. Key is take the vaccine.
Right. So would you like to show us the slides in the presentation, which...
Okay. So I have some, let me get, yes. So let's see, we can get, I'm going to share my screen. Yep. You can see it, right?
Yes.
I just want to briefly go. We have spoken on the many important points. I just wanted to highlight few things. We know that this whole coronavirus is our RNA virus. Most of the viruses are DNA, and that's where the vaccine, a lot of different efficacy is coming. That how good you make for the mRNA vaccine, and of course we know various types, but more important, various variants we keep hearing about it now. The Delta plus. The key is what you do for a simple thing, uh, COVID-19 prevention. We know sanitization, hygiene, social distancing, personal protection, medications. Lot of medicines have been tried. Remdesivir probably has come up. Many antiviral antibodies and other drugs have been tried, but remdesivir seems to be the key, which has been consistently shown to be beneficial. And more important, as we have spoken about, the COVID-19 vaccine. I think that is the key. So this is one I wanted to just say, that we published long time ago. We were I was the first one to observe, and then we spoke to many people, and then we published with the media. And so that during COVID-19 surge, while you have COVID-related heart infection, but heart attacks significantly decreased 30 to 70%. And it happened in India also. In my own hospital in Jaipur, we used to get, let's say, 5 to 7 heart attack patients per week. They become 0 to 1. And I say many reasons were, one was very simple, that you have a better mental physical health, your time on yourself. Some people, of course, became couch potato, but many of them use that time to their good exercise, like me. I lost during COVID time about 10 pounds. My metabolic parameters became better because it's free time. There was no patience, so did a lot of exercise, elliptical and relaxation. Then, of course, good food, home cooked, not the very fried food of the restaurants and so. Then, of course, we know that reduction in the pollution, which is a very important. And the lastly is that reduction is that many people were worried about not going to the hospital. And that is the biggest problem, because they were worried about the COVID exposure. And we have seen that people stayed at home, they become sicker by the time they came. So key is, once you have a heart, this actually was the video, but I'll skip that. The key is that still heart disease, even today, still remain bigger killer than COVID-19. And that's why ACC and various organizations have said that you have a heart attack, don't be afraid, don't stay at home, get the medical help, and every institution taking the precaution from the COVID point of view. So that is one point. Second point is the heart disease itself is very important. Particularly in India, if you see, there is a person age of 16 had a heart attack. Never heard of it in America. That's probably the Guinness Book of World Record. Youngest person having a heart attack is 16. And of course, it has been in the New York Times that killing more in poorer country. They highlighted India for that purpose, because the plaque which build up in our arteries is a deposit of fat from early normal artery. Gradually, this is the fat, and then sometimes the fat bursts, and that causes the heart attack. When it stabilizes, continue narrowing, and that becomes the stable plaque, which we say. And what is the difference in heart disease in Indians is young age, it's very extensive. First time patient present as a heart attack, not as angina, first time heart attack. And the risk factors are not that many. Their arteries are small, and there is no focus on prevention, because people feel that, if I'm feeling fine, why do I need to go? I want to emphasize that the death rate from the heart disease, which are, let's say, decreased in America, it's only half is from the treatment, because of advanced treatment of heart attacks, bypass surgery, but other half is because of prevention, decrease in the risk factor reduction. So key is that identifying risk factors and reducing them is of vital importance, not to get to the treatment, but even prevention. And this is my last slide to just say, the American Heart Association has 2020. They have simple 7, life's simple 7. That is smoking status, clearly. Then if you take adult children, they have poor health and intermediate health and ideal health. So key, they have very clear-cut crystallized criteria what you should do. Poor health smoker, quit last 12 months, never smoked. Body mass index, BMI, 30, 25 to 30 or less than 25. So that basically means keep your weight under control. Physical activity, how much walking you do, And you can see here. So we are talking about our 30 minutes of walking or moderate exercise. If you want to do a little more, even 15 minutes per day, not more. You don't need to do 1 hour. Just a limited exercise, but little brisk. Key is exercise has to be brisk walking. It is very common in India. Everybody says that, you know what, I walk 5 miles every day. Why did I have heart disease? Because you strolled. You didn't do a fast walking. Because you start your pulse at before 5 miles was 72, you finish on 5 miles, become 78. No, that pulse has to go to 110. You have to do a brisk walking and moderate exercise. That is what you need to do. Then healthy diet score. So basically that what you are eating, we know that the plant-based food, what you eat in terms of the energy balance component, that all less carbohydrate, even with a little more fat. The whole country, I would say that over the last 5 decades, we have taught people wrong. And what we have taught wrong, that avoid fat and you are okay to eat carbohydrate. In last 5 years, I would say, or 10 years, or 5 to 7 years, the concept have changed. You can have little fat, but avoid carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is the biggest killer. It's like a slow poison. So mithai, which we all love. So that is where you need to curtail. So healthy diet score. Then total cholesterol. Keep your cholesterol down to less than 200. This is total cholesterol, but more important, your bad cholesterol we call LDL. Keep it less than 100. And in a healthy people we're talking, those who have heart disease, they should have less than 50. And second is called HDL, which is the good cholesterol. And that cholesterol should be more than 50. And that you increase by exercise. Then the number 6 is blood pressure. To keep your pressure around 120 to 80. Very important on long run. This is what you're going to will make it you to live longer. And the lastly is your sugar. Of the various risk factors, the diabetes, obesity, cholesterol, high blood pressure, the everything else, the sugar is the biggest killer. And that is where it came back to. That now it's not that fat that bad. It is the sugar which is the killer. So key is that you keep your sugar under control. Should be less than 100. So if require medication, that is okay. But key is you will be able, once you have ideal weight, you are doing exercise, I guarantee you that you will be able to have a sugar less than 100. Because I can tell from my point of view that I used to take diabetic medicine, but since COVID last 15 months, I lost about 15 pounds. I've taken off any diabetic medicine. I never took a statin. My LDL cholesterol is 65 and my HDL is also 65 and no diabetic medicine. I used to take very small, but sugar always keep it low. But the key is the sugar has become prime for more important risk factor, even than cholesterol for the heart healthy person.
That's amazing, sir. So basically use this time as some blessing in disguise, get fit, stay fit. And that is way more important than, being worried about Corona. Yeah. So there's one other question that I wanted to know is about kids, about little kids. Have you seen anything vis-a-vis any heart issues with kids who had severe infections, or is there, because we still don't have a vaccine for children here and it's still in the process, of course, but so we may get vaccinated, but they're not getting vaccinated and we may be carriers for them. So these are things which somewhere, worry us.
No, that is a good point. So as far as I know, I can just talk about the US policy. So initially it was 16 and now they're liberated to 11. So till 11 years, they're getting vaccinated. So less than that, the question comes in the family. When parents have it, kid will get the COVID also. So, but what has been shown, they're very milder.
Right.
So COVID affects kids very mild. Sometimes they're just positive, they have no symptoms. So kids kind of immune. So it has not gone even in America. So they expect instead of the 270 million, so vaccine need to be done to about 210 million because rest are smaller, younger age and so. So key is that kids are, even here in America, nobody giving vaccine. Only for last 2 months, they went down to 11 years. But 16 plus is the one vulnerable population. If kid may get COVID, but it will be a milder form and sometimes maybe just is the positive test without any symptoms in the kids. So somehow kids, although we actually have pregnant women have transmitted COVID to the kids, but it's the positive, but they had no no real symptoms. Rare cases you see it in the media, but by and large, kids are kind of immune from, I would not say immune, but it affects them very, very less. Therefore, let's be concerned. But yes, we always have to be careful. Parents get affected, the kid will be affected. So as long as if they take adequate precaution, hopefully that will go less. And soon we should have a vaccine for the kids also. I mean, why not?
Yeah. It's in process of being approved as well. So, Dr. Sharma, we have a question from the audience for you from Deepa Mishra. She says, good evening, Dr. Sharma. Thank you for such an informative session. I would like to know if heart diseases are hereditary. If yes, what are the kind of precautions to be taken by the family in which it runs?
Yeah, very good point. So one thing is the genes. Hereditary, we always say it's because you have bad genes. So what is the gene which cause the heart problem? And answer that is zero. Millions and billions of dollars have been spent to identify a gene which can give rise to heart disease, and none. They have not come up to any final conclusion that there is a definite heart gene. Now, with that note, there are few predisposing conditions which comes hereditary and that transmit into the family. And most important is the abnormal cholesterol, we call hyperlipidemia, but the particularly LDL, hypertriglyceridemia, high triglyceride lipid. So those are the genes identifiable, and those goes from the parents to the kids, and they will have a heart disease. But familial, homozygous hypercholesterolemia, and so those are rare conditions. So, but somehow there is a cluster. Those, if your parents have a heart disease, guaranteed kids will have it. We may not know the genes, but it is clear it's hereditary. Now, only difference is the how much is transmitted and how much is acquired. Acquired factors means environmental factors. So what I say is that if your both parents have a heart disease, you will have it, but by doing your taking care of yourself, exercise, risk factor reduction, so the severity of the disease will be less and will be delayed. Father had a heart attack at age of 50, but you are very careful, your cholesterol is good, you do exercise, maybe you will have a mild disease at age of 60. So key is that yes, it is hereditary, but without any definable gene, and therefore those who have heart problem in the family, kids have to be extra careful by risk factor reduction, and that has been shown by many studies. By doing that, they will decrease the effect of the heart disease, I mean manifestation of the heart disease, and secondly, it will be delayed in a milder form.
That's great to know. Dr. Sharma, another question from G. Bagga. Here he has requested to know whether I would like to know that after having Covishield vaccine, which other vaccine should be had to have COVID antibodies? So in India, I'm assuming it's Covaxin, but there are studies, right? So that, Pfizer and Covishield is a great combination. So
I think if I had to rate, so rate wise, so one India versus outside. So let's say India, the Covishield is the most common, and now the Covaxin is available. So Covishield has shown 70 to 72% efficacy. So what does efficacy means? Efficacy means that you give to 100 people, and how many develop those spike protein antibody, which is against the COVID. So that number is about 70, 72 with the Covishield. With the Covaxin, that number is about 65. So therefore, the people, if you have both available and you did your 2 shots of vaccine, wait at least 4 to 6 weeks, because it takes about 4 weeks to make the antibody. So you did it finished on May 1st. So mid-June, after 4 to 6 weeks, you should test for your antibody. Don't test too early. It will take some time. So if it's still negative, that time you can take the second variety, and that is completely safe, because in your case, the first vaccine didn't work. So that's where we come down to now. The other more effective vaccines with the Moderna and Pfizer, actually Moderna say around 90 and 99%, Pfizer 97, 98% effective. Means you give it to 100 people, only between 1 to 3 will not have antibodies. So very effective. Johnson & Johnson is somewhere in middle, like 82%. It's a one shot. But I would, if there is a choice, I would not advise people to get Johnson & Johnson vaccine, because I have seen of the various vaccine, highest side effect is from Johnson & Johnson. You know why? It's a one shot. They have put more vaccine in one shot. So rather than the company, and that's why it is not being used. You know, if we take 100% in America, it is about 45% is the Pfizer, about Moderna is around 50%, and Johnson & Johnson is less than 5%. Because there are some people like one shot, but also many more people have got sick from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine compared to others. So that is about 82%. And then we talk about those two. So yes, coming back to the point, if your one vaccine, you did not develop your antibody 4 to 6 weeks after your second shot, it is perfectly fine to get another vaccine available and try, because and very likely that will work and make you fit by developing the antibodies.
Thank you, sir. That's very informative again. So one last question from the audience from Sheetal Dudheria. She wants to know, she said, my husband had COVID last year in July 2020, no D-dimer and ECG was done. Shall we do it now?
So I think even if it's now, question is, this has gone beyond that incubation period.
Right.
So most of that cardiomyopathy and all those have been detected is in first 3 months. So I would say that in this particular scenario, it's more than a year. I think life is back to normal and otherwise feeling fine. I don't think we need to worry about now. No. But those who are getting it now, the first 3 months, because you already have passed, because it doesn't happen to everybody. This delayed reaction of the COVID into the heart muscle happen in 5% of cases. Right. We need to find out those 5%. So it seems to be that if you are 1 year out, then there is no COVID, as far as we know, effect on the heart, because maximum has been about 3 months only. So therefore, at this time, I would not recommend to do any test, because I'm sure you went out of the COVID. COVID is bye-bye. Don't think about it now.
It's bypassed you now. Sir, thank you so much for an absolutely lovely session. We are so honored, and more than anything else, it's so good to know that, you know, we are taking home so many good pointers, which we will only make sure that, you know, other people who could not be there with us today, we will pass them on to them. But thank you so much, sir. Thanks again for a lovely session.
Fantastic. Namaskar.
On behalf of the foundation, I would like to thank you, Dr. Sameen Sharma and Ms. Karishma Mehta. I would also like to thank you, our presenter, Shree Cement Limited. Today has been a very invigorating session, an eye-opener, though we've been talking about COVID for the longest of time, but still I think we're taking back home a lot of insight, and we'll be more cautious the coming months and years. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our patrons who've made this session possible even during these difficult times. Stay well, stay safe, everybody. Good night. Have a good day.